Everyone, and welcome to our webinar on the key payroll dates in 2023 to 2024 tax year. I'm Caris Lambert, the Digital Content Manager here at MorePay, and in this payroll webinar, we'll be covering the key dates that you need to remember as a payroll professional, from processing your payroll and then to the exciting awards and conferences coming up this year, and a little bit on legislation as well. So the topics we're covering today are the regular payroll dates to remember, bank holidays and what to do about that extra bank holiday we've got coming up, big payroll events in the UK, including payroll awards and the submission deadlines you need to watch out for, how the retained EU law bill may affect payroll, and a little Q&A at the end of the session. So a really quick summary about MorePay before we begin, in case you don't know us. We've been around since 1966 and our mission is to make payroll and HR easy. Our platform is built on the super secure Microsoft Azure technology, and our services are backed by dozens of qualified payroll and HR subject matter experts, like our guest speaker today. And the proof is in the pudding with our industry recognised accreditations and our Trustpilot rating as well. And how do we make it easy? Well, through intuitive, simple software and quality services, which means our customers not only save a lot of admin time keeping on top of their payroll and HR processes, but it also helps them stay compliant with legislation. If you'd like to learn any more about our products and services, just let me know in the chat box, or there'll be a survey that pops up at the end when you leave the webinar, and one of our advisors can follow up. One final bit of housekeeping. If you do want to ask a question for Sybil, our expert, you just need to pop it in the panel that you should see on your screen. We'll do our best to answer as many questions as we can in this webinar, and any more we'll try and follow up with you on. If you're facing any technical issues, pop it in the panel as well, and if there's an influx, I'll know there's an issue and I'll be able to sort that out. And also don't worry, because we will be sending everyone a recording of this webinar when it's finished. So you don't need to take notes or anything like that. You can just enjoy the webinar and we'll send it you, and also the slides when it's over with later today. So joining us today is Sybil Watkins, our amazing new product legislation manager of Zealous Group. And for those of you who don't know, Zealous Group includes us at MorePay and also our sister companies, Zealous and Benefex. Sybil is a self-described legislation nerd. She has over 25 years working in payroll and HR processing, management and operational roles. She uses her industry knowledge to support Zealous Group with all things payroll legislation and case law. Sybil's also a champion of neurodiversity in payroll, and I'd recommend you follow her on LinkedIn because you can learn a bit more about that. And she also shares lots of news on current legislation and case law, which is very interesting. I'll now pass over to Sybil to continue the webinar.
Thanks, Caris, and hello to everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Hopefully you'll just get an overview of a few dates in the year and a couple of little bits that we thought would be really good just to bring up in this particular webinar. So, as everyone knows, every year there's reoccurring dates. First one being the RTI submissions, including the EPS deadline of the 19th of the month following, and then payments due on the 22nd of that month should you be paying by BACS bank transfer, and it's earlier if you still do pay by cheque, but I've not seen anybody that's done that recently. So just remember to use your 13-digit characters in the reference so that HMRC can attempt to allocate it correctly. You also have your P46 car quarterly submission that you need to send should you still operate company cars. that will say whether you've got new joiners, people stopping having a company car, changes to the company cars themselves. Just a note that it's also worth having these dates in your policy, and also to advise the employees that they can inform HMRC through their online tax account or through the HMRC's new tax account app, and more details can be found through gov.uk for that. Annually, as you all know, there's some wonderful deadlines, and they're all coming up this time of year as a rule. So 31st of May, ensure everybody's had a copy of their P60, whether you still print and post or whether it is through a self-service option. By the 1st of June, all employees have information on their payroll benefits. On the 5th of July, PSA submission for 22-23. That is the date to have HMRC agreeing for the last tax year. So should you suddenly realise that the company's been distributing vouchers, say if they're £20 vouchers as a well done, and you haven't got a PSA currently, then you can apply to HMRC before the 5th of July to be able to then do this submission. All PSAs are currently now submitted online and via email. 6th of July, P11Ds, as I expect you all already know. P11Ds now have to be submitted online, so either via payroll software or through your Government Gateway online account. And this also applies to any amendments from the previous tax years or amendments going forwards. 21st of July, Class 1A NICs owed on the expenses and benefits from your P11Ds. 22nd of October, the Class 1B NI due against your PSA settlement agreements. And then finally, for public sector workers, 30th of March is the gender pay gap reporting date required. Many businesses outside of public sector use this date, but should you not be in the public sector, it is your business, it's your business to actually choose which date they want to use as the analysis date each year. Next is just an overview on bank holidays. Don't forget there is a difference for Northern Ireland and Scotland. So we've just listed the dates here. Now, as we all know, in the legislation, there is no such thing as bank holiday, they're statutory days. And they are listed as 8, but obviously this year we have an additional bank holiday for the coronation of King Charles III, I should say, and that will be in a couple of weeks' time. Scotland have an additional day for St Andrew's Day, and for a New Year's holiday, 2nd of January they use for the Hogmanay, but they also don't have the Easter Monday. So that's where their day swapped over, and they are also having this additional date for the coronation. Northern Ireland just have the July date as their own date, and everything else follows on from England and Wales. So this additional bank holiday, and I'm just using that term just because it's easier for us to talk about it rather than go into the legislation speak. In May, this year there are 3 days. So that is 3 weeks of a 4-day working week. Wonderful for those of us that actually get those days off. So communications, obviously it's always really important to ensure that communications are given out in advance to all your employees. So first thing to do is review your employee contracts and your policies. So if your contract states the bank holidays plus X number of days annual leave, you'll need to give this extra day as a bank holiday. But if your contract states 8 bank holiday days or lists the dates and then just the number of days, then this would not be included. But again, it's down to company policy. It's down to the company's business decisions and what they are to do with it. But whatever happens, ensure you communicate clearly with your employees in advance of what the plan is. And it's also a good time just to add some wording into your company's policies and positions so the government introduce additional bank holidays in the future too, so that you guys in payroll all know exactly what's happening, and so do the staff. With business disruption, these long weekends have the potential to cause disruption to many businesses across the country, so you need to account for this in your planning, forecasting within the payroll realms, so not to miss deadlines, particularly if you operate weekly payrolls and you pay, say, on a Friday, you're missing 3 Mondays. And it's also important to remember that many external services may be unavailable on these dates too, so HMRC support or your technical support from your governance teams and your legal teams. So just make sure you plan, but I'm sure everyone in payroll already is fully planned ahead. So just little things to remember, that there's no statutory right for the employee to have bank holidays off work. Bank holidays are counted in employment law terms as a normal day's holiday, so a part of the employee's annual leave entitlement. Any right to time off depends on the terms of your employee contract, and it's not a statutory right. The statutory right is 28 days in the year, and there is no statutory right to extra pay when working on a bank holiday, so that you don't legally have to pay them time and a half, double time. Depends what's in the contract and what's under your business terms on these policies. Just a note, if you're unionised, that this may have separate terms to the non-unionised part of the business. And don't forget, part-time workers, make sure you treat them the same as full-time workers. They have the right to not be treated less favourably than a comparative full-time worker, and everybody is entitled to 5.6 weeks holiday allowance, which is prorated down for part-time workers, irrespective of whether an employee works on the day the bank holiday falls. And just to go back to the 28 days and the 5.6 weeks, 28 days is for a 5 or 6 day week contracted worker, and that equates to 5.6 weeks. And you'll notice all the online calculators that are done correctly are all in weeks. Again, it's down to you guys in payroll to understand how to calculate and transfer this into days. So the fun bit of payroll, that's if you ever actually manage to get out of the office. UK payroll events, we have a few going on. Some of them are in person now that COVID is out of the way, and some of them are online, some of them are in-house. So first of all, CIPD, Festival Work. This is down in London, Olympia. It includes ESG, L&D, employee experience, well-being, internal comms, ED&I. Maybe not something for people who are purely in payroll, but if you do a bit of both, a great event, again, to network and get up to date on everything and future ways of working, and still interesting if you're payroll as well. So Payroll and Reward Conference, run by Reward Strategy in association with the Payroll Centre. Here is a 2-day conference in London again. You'll find speakers, breakout sessions, Reward Strategy Awards as an evening gala, and plenty of chance to do networking and build your knowledge and your network team. Then we have National Payroll Week, originally set up by CIPP. I hope all of you guys are actually going to be able to do something, even if it's just a banner above your work desk saying National Payroll Week. None of us joined this profession to be, nationally recognised or to be shouted out about in the business, but it's a great time to just show the rest of the business what we really do. I will be doing a little bit with the Payroll Centre on neurodiversity in payroll because, as said on the introduction, I'm really passionate about it, and I am neurodiverse myself and have been through all the struggles and come out the other side. So keep an eye out on CIPP, Payroll Centre, and all the other partners, and see what's out there. Let's get us out as payroll professionals. Then you've got the annual conference and exhibition for CIPP in October. There are plenary sessions, workshops, networking, and then they also have their award ceremony. So again, it's a great 2-day event that you can get and learn various different areas, touch up on your knowledge. If you're CIPP recognised and you need to do your training hours, obviously that can count towards it as well. Then you've got CIPD's annual conference and exhibition in November. You'll find speakers, exhibitors, networking sessions, and just a chance to get down and have a look at different exhibitors, whether it be from software, whether it be from people providing extra training. It's quite a big event and there's loads to see and do there as well. Finally, it's a Reward and Payroll Summit, again by Reward Strategy in November. And there you'll have speakers, breakout sessions, and a chance to network as well. And that's just a 1-day. There are some awards out there that we in Payroll can be nominated for and can make nominations as well. Global Payroll Awards by GPA. The award ceremony is on the 8th of June. The submission deadline's 21st of April, so we've just passed that. But add it to your diary for next year, and you'll be able to get more information again towards the end of the year. They usually release it. Employeebenefits.co.uk do a award ceremony as well on the 23rd of June. Submission deadline's quite a bit earlier, so it's back in February, and the submissions open again around about November this year. So the CIPP have their annual Excellence Awards. The award ceremony is on the 5th of October and deadline's 31st of July. So you are still able to make your submissions, and all details can be found through their webpage on all the different categories and how you can put your submissions in. The rewards by the Reward Strategy, award ceremony in November 23. So you can start your submissions for this. Sorry, I can't actually see the date there, Caris.
Sorry, my bad. I'll pop it in the slides when we send it over.
Yeah, apologies, we've missed that off, so we'll get that to you at the end. Oh, sorry about that. So next one. So we thought it would be worth just having a quick chat about the summary of the retained EU law bill. This is all to do with us leaving the EU. At the end of this year, we are due to have this bill come into place, and it has what is called a sunset clause. So what this is looking at is the retained EU law that was originally part of our primary legislation. So any retained EU law that's still applied after the end of 2023 would need to be assimilated into our laws. So, however, it does mean many laws we have in our payroll setting could be amended, could be revoked, assimilated into our legislations. And this is a really big area for us all to keep an eye on, because it could be looking at things like alabaster, holiday pay, which I think is the bane of most payroll professionals' life, various parts of Working Time Directive, 2P, etc. And the next slide will show them a bit more. But there have been some reports in the news recently that this may get blocked or maybe put on hold until after the next general election, but nothing's been confirmed, and the bill is currently still in the House of Lords at reporting stage. After this, the bill will be reprinted to include all the agreed amendments, and then it moves to a third reading. After the third reading, the final stage of this is that it will go to consideration of amendments and then to royal assent. So until that point, it will not come in. And the sunset clause is the termination as at the 31st of December of this year of all our retained EU laws. So the effect that may see for employers and potentially employees alike. So 2P. The 2P rules may be tweaked, such as small employer exemption Consulting employee representatives may be increased. We expect this just to move alongside redundancy regs. We're not expecting this to be changed as such, as it's been something that's been here for so long. But again, this is what we personally accept. Anything can happen. Holiday pay calculations. So with the conflicting information about holiday pay, part-year working calculations that are in consultation, we may see some changes to how holiday pay is calculated moving forwards. And again, it's a very, very grey may. Though many areas have now been mentioned in UK court cases, and this goes back to the British Gas, the Locke, Peterson, all those sort of case laws. They were all done under EU, but there have been more recent cases that have then mentioned these and pulled them automatically then into UK law. And some of them have also been confirmed that the judges in the UK courts agree with the EU decisions. It's a massive, massive area of contention because, as everybody will also be aware, we've also got the BIS consultations that were going on about it, and really having a look at exactly how do you calculate it in line with our laws, our wording, our legislations, and building out on the governance of it. But I would be very surprised if much changed. All my colleagues, payroll professionals, are just hoping that we get some more in-depth guidance and actual calculations that will sit in the acts that sit under the laws. Rest breaks is another area that comes out of EU law. So they may amend the rest breaks, which currently are protected under EU law, and they could remove the maximum 48-hour working week limit that employees have to opt out of currently. Family-friendly rights. There's lots of rights going through at the moment in the UK law, but we also have ones in EU law, including maternity leave, shared parental, paternity, adoption leaves. Again, my view and the view of other payroll professionals is it may be enhanced, but we couldn't see anything really changing within the actual laws and what's allowed. They could enhance and they could give more rights, but they certainly wouldn't be going back against any of them. And that includes something like Alabaster. Alabaster is obviously a really old one. It's an annoying sort of calculation we have to do, but should they have tried to pull that, there is precedent that people have had it so long and it's so embedded in our ways of working. Could you really see that going? Personally, no. Agency workers changes, protection for agency workers may be removed entirely, may not be. Again, I don't know how it would sound than actually removing anything, but it will just have to be assimilated into a part of our laws, but not quite sure where they'd sit it or if it'd have its own legislation written. Sick leave, the only whispers that I've heard so far is they could remove the accrual of holiday during sick leave. And they also could add or remove waiting days, PIW links, etc. Again, this is only a really light could, just because it's under EU law. Whether they do anything, I'd be surprised, but I wouldn't be counted as wrong if they did make a change. Is about it for me on this particular session. So back over to you, Caris.
Thank you so much, Sybil. That was really, really good. A great level of detail as well. And I hope everyone watching found it super useful. So we've got a few questions for Sybil. Let me just open those up. So the first one, and one many employers might be considering, we don't need to give bank holidays as part of employee contracts, but our employees are expecting getting the day off. What do you think? Should we give them the day off anyway?
be able to give an answer or even a personal opinion that, but what you have to remember is you've got to follow the laws and legislations and ensure that your contracts, your policies and procedures are all up to date. So when you take somebody on, if they are working, say, in a retail sector or hospitality, then ensure that the contract states that they will be required to work what the general public call a blank holiday and what will happen with that day. So they'll be given the day off in lieu, what they will receive in remuneration. And it is just make sure that you actually follow the legislations, and if you're unsure, check with your legal team.
Great, thank you so much for that. And Mark asks, what does a champion neurodiversity in payroll mean? It sounds great. Do you have any thoughts on that, Sybil?
Well, this is where my 3 hours of chatting could go on. So, you know, the overview is I was diagnosed this year and I'm in my mid-40s of being ADHD and autistic. And in payroll, I always struggled because people say, well, you're really clever, but you're really careless, or just sit still and concentrate. And for me personally, being a champion is shouting out saying, look, just because we have these quirks that might not be conducive to being what everybody classes as an ideal payroller doesn't mean that we're not. I mean, I've branched out. My passion and love is legislation, case laws, and all that side, but I've spent 25, 30 years actually payroll processing and fighting, you know, the historic views. So it's just shouting out and saying, you can make the adjustments, and it doesn't mean that it's going to cause any issues. If you're neurodiverse, payroll is a great area to be in because the legislation's black and white. It's the exact wording you have to read. So it's also something that's very new. As everybody knows, neurodiversity is really very much in the headlines. But for me, it's just to be able to shout out and say, look, yep, here's me. Here's what we could offer as a bigger group.
Yeah, I think it's something at Marpay we're looking to kind of expand and talk about a lot more internally and externally. So yeah, definitely watch this space. Thanks for that, Sybil. We've got a few more questions in the chat. You did cover this, I think, regarding pay for bank holiday. Is it double pay? And I'm pretty sure the answer is no, unless it's in your contract. Is that true, Sybil?
That is, there's no legal requirement to enhance any employee's pay on a statutory day off. I mean, we've got to try and change our terminology, but we'll still use bank holidays because it's easier. So no, there is no legal requirement. Should you have a contract that states that, or you be under unionised agreement that states employees will receive double time, then yes, but legally, from a basic level, there is no legal requirement for that.
That's great, thank you. And Dania asks, please could you explain the Alabaster Rule?
The Alabaster Rule, without going too in depth on this particular call, is where if you have a person on maternity leave and during that leave they have been awarded a pay increase, you have to recalculate their statutory maternity pay to include that pay award. So they are potentially slightly better off in the fact that you are taking it back, the paid advance back. It's something that's been around, I think it was 25 years this year or last year that it's actually been around. But there's loads of stuff online again about it, or you know, if you've got more pay or Zealous software then and you want some more information, give a shout out to the support team.
Thank you. We'll just have one more question regarding events and attending events. So my employer sends sales professionals payroll events instead of us payrollers. Is there a business case for sending us, the payroll professionals, along?
Oh, I definitely think so. Yes, send in the sales professionals, but as they aren't the ones that are actually there in the midst of doing the training, every payroller is on a permanent journey of self-development, just because of the changes that happen each year from HMRC and in our basic laws. So you can put it to them, your business, that you need to ensure that you're fully up to date. Also, these events can give you insight to what's happening. Potentially, they'll have speakers from some of your big companies like EY, PwC, Deloitte, etc. And they are all heavily involved with HMRC and be able to tell you what they're hearing about, or say like the pensions dashboard that's going to be released. Some of us behind the scenes have had some input and views on the dashboard. Yeah, I think you should put the business case across as it's training and development, and you have a moral obligation to ensure that you are 100% up to date with all the changes.
Yeah, very good point. Thank you. So we'll wrap up the questions then. Any others we will, respond to separately via email. I just wanted to share this question from Mark. Thanks so much for being so open about your personal situation, Sybil. Absolutely brilliant to model diversity. Love it.
Oh, thank you very much.
So just some final things that might help you from me. If you do want any more advice on payroll, on legislation, on case law, go to the Knowledge Centre in our website. We've got absolutely loads of content, past webinars, guides, and etc. that you can dive into, and we try and answer all of the common questions that get asked in webinars like this. If you do have any specific questions you'd like answering in a blog article or anything, we're always open to hearing that, so you can pop it in the question panel. We also have a webinar every month on payroll and HR. Our next one's on the redundancy process, so if you'd like to join, again, you can put it in the question panel or on the survey that pops up as you leave the webinar. Just mention it in there and your email address if you can, and I'll sign you up to that. Finally, if you do need any help with your payroll or your HR for that matter, we've got a team of experts, including Sybil, who are on hand to help all of our customers, and we've got some great software behind that too. So just let me know, and we can get one of our advisors to contact you and just see if it's right for you. But there'll be no pressure, absolutely, to join us. So thank you so much for attending. As I mentioned, I'll send over the webinar recording and the slides this afternoon. So just keep an eye on your emails. Thank you everyone for coming, and thank you, Sybil.
Thank you very much, and thanks everybody for joining us.
See you.